Hiya guys, welcome to John's Pantry. Today we're going to be doing a pork Wellington with mushroom sauce. Obviously we're going to start off with some pork, so here's a pork fillet. Look at the pork fillet. What we need to do is we need to trim it, get rid of the fat and the sinew. So this is the easiest way, just use the point of a knife, cut underneath the sinew. Here we go. It's not a particularly sharp knife. And just run the knife underneath the sinew. If you don't remove the sinew, you'll notice that the pork will shrink when it cooks and it'll get tough. Once you've done all that, keep all the trimmings, mind, don't throw the trimmings away. There's the trimmings there, and we're just going to cut the trimmings up into little pieces, and that's going to go into the stock that will make the sauce. Everything, you keep everything, all your trimmings. That makes your sauces. So for a pork Wellington we needed what's called a mushroom duxelle as basically a stuffing. So I've got a punnet of chestnut mushrooms and I've diced them up, half a leek, diced them up, and then I've got some parsley, a good handful of parsley, and chopped that up, and some butter. This is the trimmings off the leeks, and this is the stalks slash parsley that I didn't require. All goes into a pan. Now I've got a frying pan there with another butter, same amount of olive oil in there, and I'm just going to fry these mushrooms off. Now you'll find that the mushrooms, as soon as you incorporate salt or salt into it, they'll release lots of liquid, lots of water. So what we're doing at the moment, we're frying them, but as soon as we put salt in, they'll release the water and they'll end up boiling slash steaming. So initially we're frying there. I'll put the salt in, and then we're going to cook them on the stove on a very high heat, and that's going to cook for a good 10 minutes because we want to get rid of all the water that's come out of the mushrooms. And that's going to condense the flavour back into the mushrooms, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for flavour. Everything's flavour, flavour, flavour. Yeah, we'll just continue frying these until all the water is gone. We'll come back to them and you'll see how much water has come out of the mushrooms. It's quite surprising. Going back to the stock pot, I had just one celery stick. I've just broken it up, never chopped it up, just broke it up, put it into the pan, and then I'm going to cover that with water, but I'm going to put half a stock cube, vegetable stock cube in there. And this is for later on. This is the Parma ham. So I've just laid that on a bench so I know how much I've got. Here's the mushrooms. Can you see how much water is gathering in the pan? So they're literally boiling slash steaming. That's because I put salt in it. So what I'm doing is I need to fry them until the water's gone. There's a half a stock cube in the stock pan. I'm just going to cover everything with water and put it on the boil. Put some pepper in. I haven't put any salt in because I used a stock cube. They can be salty. There's the mushroom duxelle. Can you see how the water's disappeared? I'm just going to empty it out. That's 10 minutes of cooking. Empty them out onto a plate, and spread them round. Now this is flavour, 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 remember. So once I've emptied the mushrooms out, I'm going to put a little bit of water in, and this is called deglazing the pan. I'm taking all the flavour that's stuck to the bottom of the pan, and I'm going to put it into the stock pan. And there's the stock pan simmering away. You can already smell the flavour just looking at that picture, can't you? Clean the pan out, put the pan back on full blast. Forget about it. This is what we need to do now, is season the pork fillet. So I'm just seasoning the board, salt and pepper, and just roll the pork fillet around in it until you find that there's no salt and pepper on the board, and then it goes into the frying pan. So this pan is now red hot, so I've just put some vegetable oil, not olive oil, just vegetable oil. I'm just sealing stuff off, not adding flavour at the moment. So there we go. Give it a swirl around, get it really hot, and then put your pork fillet in. Once it's in, don't mess with it. Literally, don't move it. We're sealing at the moment. We're sealing all the flavour in. So once it's been on there for a good 2-3 minutes, turn it over. There we go. Lovely and brown on that side. And now I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. I've got the top, the bottom, and left, right side. And I'll do that for a good 8-9 minutes. And we're getting that coloured and we're partially cooking it. Then I'll place it in the middle of the plate, and you'll see why I'm using the plate in a minute. And then we're going to do exactly the same. A little bit of water in there, a little bit mixed around. Get a wooden spoon in there if you can. Get it stirred off, and then straight into the stock pan. It's all flavour. Here's the puff pastry that we need to make the Wellington with. I bought this in Sainsbury's. It costs just over £1 for a block. It's not worth making it. It can take you up to 6-8 hours to make puff pastry. Cheaper to buy it, as long as you buy the all butter puff pastry. It's brilliant stuff. I've rolled it out, and then I've put the pork fillet next to it to make sure it's big enough. Then I've got the Parma ham, and I've laid it out the length of the pork fillet. Then I've covered that Parma ham with the mushrooms that were on the sides of the pork fillet. I haven't moved the pork fillet, so I've still got the mushrooms that are underneath the pork fillet. They're going to go on top. But the Parma ham, I made sure I kept 2 of the slices back, and they're to go on top of it. I made a nice egg wash, just an egg, with a pinch of salt, give it a good mix. Right, the stock pot's been boiling for nigh on an hour now, so I'm just going to make sure that it's seasoned correctly. I know it's got pepper in there, but I don't want to put salt because of the stock cube, half a vegetable stock cube. And when I've come back to it, that salt is perfect. I've reduced the stock down a bit, so the salt is perfect. Now here we go, is the interesting bit. This is how I'm going to make the Wellington. So I've got my puff pastry rolled out. I've got the Parma ham, and I've got the mushrooms. And now this is where the mushrooms that were on the plate underneath the pork. Now you know why I left the pork in situ. Also, I put the pork on top of the mushrooms because that reduces, while it's resting, that produces juices, and those mushrooms will absorb those. Now here's the 2 slices of ham that I mentioned earlier. I'm just putting them on top of it, on top of the mushrooms that I've just put on top of, so you can see it's going to be lovely, surrounded by Parma ham, surrounded by mushrooms. Here's the egg wash that I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to brush all the way around the outside, all the outside edges, just so they all stick together. Basically, that's all we're looking for. We don't want any juices or any steam to release. So that's it, egg washed. So it's all going to stick together. Now I'm just going to check that this pastry is going to be big enough. So yeah, definitely. I'm looking at that and I'm going, yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to roll that over, and then I'm pushing the pastry onto the meat. I don't want any gaps. I want it nice and tight. Nice and tight, because we don't want any air holes, any gaps, because if there's any gaps, they'll fill up with steam, and they will puff up and they will blow the pastry. They will actually break the pastry because the steam will expand that much and that quick. It'll actually make a hole in the pastry. So I'm just trimming the edges off, just making sure I've got enough there. Yeah, I've got plenty there, so I'll egg wash that, just so it sticks together basically, and then I'm just going to seal it. That's it. I'll do the other side exactly the same. But don't discard the pastry that we're cutting off. You'll see why we're not going to do that. So I didn't quite cut enough off, so I'll cut a little bit more off, and then that's it. Because we don't want a great big bulge of pastry at the end of the beef Wellington, the pork Wellington. I keep calling it beef, but it's a pork Wellington. And then I'm just going to seal that side. Then we're going to put it on a baking tray, but as you can see, the seam is all the way along the top there. So we're going to turn it upside down now. We're going to swing it over so that seam is underneath. So the presentation side is going to be seamless, which is always much better. But before I put it on the baking tray, I'll just give it a brush off with my hands, get most of the flour off it, because the flour will stop the glaze, which is what we're putting on now, the egg wash. Now the egg wash, you're just going to make sure that you've put plenty, you give it a good mix, but also put a good pinch, and I mean a good pinch of salt in the egg wash, and that makes it more liquid and much easier to spread. So now I've just got a blunt knife, definitely not a sharp knife, and I'm just scoring the puff pastry just to give it a decoration, so when it cooks you'll see that when it comes out the oven. But always egg wash it before you decorate it, because the decoration will actually stand out a lot better. And now here's the trimmings that I told you about with the puff pastry. Keep them. There we go. I'm just going to make some triangles. I'm going to make 3 altogether, but I'll just show you 2 at the moment. It's dead easy. Just make a couple of triangles. Get your blunt knife again, and then you're just making an impression. Just imagine what a leaf looks like. You're just making the veins of a leaf on it. Give it a good egg wash before you put it onto the, and then give it a curl just before you put it on, so it stands up proud. That always looks a bit better than just flat, because then you're giving it 3 dimensions. I'll do the second one just as a demonstration. Same again, just egg wash it, and then give it a bit of a twist just before you put it on there, and you'll notice it'll stand proud from the, that's the finished product. It's been egg washed. I've just got some black poppy seeds, and just down each side, not all over, just down each side. That gives it a presentation, which is lovely. Right, now for the mushroom sauce. It's dead easy. Just half a punnet of chestnut mushrooms, or mushrooms of your choice, half a leek that I had left from the duxelle mix. I've just diced them up. Don't have to get as small as you did with the duxelle mix. And then I'm just going to fry them. I need the stock, so all I've done is I've sieved the stock into a jug, and that's the stock that I've got left. That stock took an hour 20 minutes to cook, and it reduced down, and it's full of flavour. So I've got my frying pan, the same frying pan, got a knob of butter, some olive oil, and then I just cracked a garlic clove, peeled it and threw it in the pan, and that just flavours the oil. And what we've got is some British double cream, the stock, and some red wine. Now I've just fried that garlic clove, not crushed, and all it does is just flavour the oil / butter. And then I'm just frying as we did before, frying the mushrooms, frying the leeks. I'm not putting salt and pepper in at the moment. I don't want it to release any juice. And then I've got half a glass of red wine. There we go, half a glass of red wine once the mushrooms are cooked. And now I'm going to cook that for a good 5 minutes on high heat. So we're going to reduce that red wine down to a syrup. So you're not really going to see a lot of red wine left. And then we're going to put another glass, like wine glass full of the stock. into it. So we'll keep on cooking this, and then we're looking at putting a wine glass full of the stock, and then we've got the cream ready to go in as well. So now that's the red wine reduced down. Now I'm putting my salt and pepper in, because the mushrooms are cooked, they're not going to release any more water. So salt and pepper, just make sure that you've got the seasoning right, just a pinch at the moment. You can always adjust it later. And then I'm going to take the garlic clove out, because the garlic clove's done its job, it's flavoured it. We don't want to leave it in the sauce, just in case somebody gets caught with it in the back of the throat. We don't want that. And there we go. We've now got the stock in there, which is a glass of the stock, a wine glass of the stock, and we're just going to boil that off. We're going to get it back down to about half again. So we're going to reduce that down by half. Once that's reduced by half, then we're going to start adding the cream. Double cream. Use double cream when we're talking cream. If you put single cream in, it's got a very good tendency to split. Put double cream in, you can boil it and it will not split. You can boil the arse off it and it will not split. There we go. I'll put some double cream in. Now, same again. That's a wine glass full of cream. And then we're just going to leave that to simmer. Not boil, but we're going to leave that to simmer for 5 minutes. And that will reduce down to a thick, creamy sauce. And it's going to be so rich with that stock in there and the mushrooms. You only need a tablespoon of it. I'm just checking the seasoning, and it's perfect because the stock was already seasoned perfectly. That's the pork Wellington that's just come out the oven. What I did was I just sliced some apple, put that on the same tray, and I put a little bit of oil and sprinkled a little bit of sugar over them. And that's just to serve it with, because it is really nice to have apple with pork. Then I put it on a board and sliced it, and this is what it looks like. I'll tell you what, it was an absolutely fantastic meal. And the good thing about it, I told my grandson, 7-year-old Elliot, that it was pork pie. So he ate it. If I told him it was pork Wellington, he would probably turn his nose up at it. But because I told him it was pork pie, he loved it. And he actually had seconds. Right, the pork Wellington was in the oven, and I had the oven at 210 degrees centigrade, and it was in the oven for a good 40 minutes. When it came out the oven, I probed it through the centre, and I made sure it was above 65 degrees. Then I left it to rest like all good meats. Once it's roasted, give it a good 20-minute rest, and then it was perfect to serve. Cheers.